Yes, from each of the panelists, it'd be interesting to hear, number one, how do you use Twitter and social media in your jobs? Good example in ways created positive results, and an example where it just makes you, pull your hair out and it makes your life a lot more difficult.
For us, it's a lot of what David talked about. It's what's happening right now. Training camp is one thing that really jumps out at me. We've had huge increases in traffic and really just communication during training camp. We're able to report training camp a lot better. For instance, one of the drivers for our Twitter account is practice reports from training camp. And that's something that 5 years ago you would never get. You'd wait till the writers all got back, they did the interviews, they wrote the stories, and then 2-3 hours after practice, the different media outlets would start to have reports from that practice up. Now, if Devin Hester catches a bomb, and if it's his, somebody's first day back from a holdout or whatever, we're reporting as that guy walks onto the field or as that guy catches a pass, and it takes off. What Facebook does is it allows us to report that at a later date to a much more casual fan base. And even if David breaks it, 30 minutes before we do, we can put it out on Facebook and still get a huge reaction from people who aren't as plugged in. Facebook to us is an audience that we didn't have access to before. So we'll use Facebook it's a great way for stories that we weren't able to break. We can get it out there and still be the first people to report it to this crew. And it really has helped us become a more legitimate news source in that way. So,
I guess from our perspective, we don't see ourselves as competing with the beat writers. And I think that's important. We would never scoop somebody using social media. I just think that kind of defeats the purpose. Now that may change down the road, but right now we'll always make sure that we've taken care of our beat writers first before we'd ever release news. Now we may have a different angle on a story, we may have more information, we may be able to get interviews up quicker and faster and better. But I think that's just kind of our editorial approach, I guess, more than anything else.
And you won't use it necessarily to refute or counter or provide, or you will?
Oh yeah, no, we will. I mean, you asked me for an example of a negative in social media, and I would have to say the speed and immediacy of Twitter and the fact checking and the story you told, you called 2 sources. When I was in journalism school, if you didn't have 2 sources, you didn't go with something. My sense is that standard is out the window. I applaud you for calling and actually getting a source. I can't remember a time this season where I've gotten a phone call from a media person checking a rumor on Twitter. And the sources say quickly gets dropped within minutes, literally. And I think the best example in the baseball season is the trade deadline as well as the waiver deadline. I'm sitting there watching Twitter scroll by on my tweet deck, and we put in claims for Jim Thome, we put in claims for Jason Kubel, we put in claims for all these guys. Now, I don't know, and I don't want to know who we've claimed and who we haven't, but in the end, none of that obviously was true. Who's the source? And I'm not naive. I mean, people get used. People get used for either teams choose to use reporters or agents choose to use reporters to basically move their story or better their position. That bothers me. It bothers me about Twitter. It bothers me about social media. The example that I think I would give as a positive this year is the Paul Konerko Final Man Vote campaign. We've kind of, knock on wood, but we've had some luck in the past getting White Sox players voted onto the All-Star team as a part of a program Major League Baseball does where you have the Final Man vote. And we've now had Posednik, AJ, and Paul Konerko. For whatever reason, and it's very much something that we're proud of and we try to take advantage of, our fan base is very wired in. They're online, they're on Twitter, they're on Facebook, and so we create these media campaigns kind of on the fly. They're a lot of fun because we find out on Sunday morning that Paul Konerko is a candidate and the final vote is due by, I think, 5 o'clock on Thursday. So you basically have these meetings within the front office, look at all the different vehicles that we can communicate with, and we create these campaigns kind of on the fly, and we flew an airplane over down.
I think for the Blackhawks, David, you said it really well in terms of your first instinct when you got that information was to go to Twitter right away and not go necessarily to the paper, go to chicagosports.com or anything like that, but get it out there and kind of light the match. And even though I'm with Scott, our goal at at ChicagoBlackhawks.com isn't to scoop our reporters or really try to break news, but at the same time, we know that, as Dan said, that's what drives everything, and content is what our fans care about, and they are looking to us to sort of be, if not always the first source, they're looking for us to be hopefully the most comprehensive source, and we try to live up to that, and that's actually my first instinct too. When something breaks, when anything happens with our team, the first place I go is Twitter and get the discussion started there. I don't go to our website, even though it would take me probably just as much time actually to put a top story up saying it as it does Twitter. I know that it's going to get things rolling and people are going to retweet it and it's going to get out there faster if I do it on Twitter. And one example I think of actually was from the summer before last, coming off the Stanley Cup. The San Jose Sharks had made a qualifying offer to one of our top defensemen, Nicholas Hjalmarsson. And this doesn't happen very often because a team makes them an offer if he's a restricted free agent. They have to give us draft picks as compensation because he was restricted. So like I said, it doesn't happen very often. It was kind of a big story. Were we going to lose one of our top defensemen to the Sharks? And the question is, we have the opportunity to match that offer or not. A lot of discussion going on. What are the Blackhawks going to do? And our hockey ops department is great about communicating with all of us and letting us know that this stuff is coming. This particular case, our GM had been out of town, and then he was all of a sudden going to make an appearance at a camp, at a rookie camp. It's like we knew he was going to talk to the media. We knew it was the first question they were going to ask. I didn't know what he was going to say. I had an inkling he was going to say, yes, we're matching it, we're bringing it back. I was 99% sure, but not 100% sure. So you're sitting there in the media scrum with the camera getting the video with my right hand. With my left hand, I've got my BlackBerry out, and I'm typing as he's saying it to get it out there. And yeah, I was trying to be first. You know, I was, because in that case, we all had the same access to the information.
I think with us, it's sort of a mix between what Adam and Scott said. I think for us, because of the saturation of the media market and the difference in coverage that the Fire get comparative to the White Sox or the Bears or the Blackhawks, is that we have to use it for a couple different things. We obviously never want to scoop our reporters. Like Scott said, we're always interested in engaging our beat writers and making sure that they get the story out almost simultaneously. But our thought is that there's a lot of coverage left on the table. And so we use Twitter as a means to getting stories out that, you know, maybe my pitch has fallen short with David and he's not interested in writing a column about something. So we're able to use Twitter to sort of generate our own stories, and we're able to break news similar to what these guys have said in a fashion where we're driving people back to our site where we have additional information. We also use Twitter as a way to, we've got a very fervent and I think tech-savvy fan base. Soccer's always been known as people who are very computer savvy and have jumped on Twitter, I think, from very early on. And so I think we're able to use that and we're able to start discussions a little more practically than we are in the general news market.
But for me, social media is more about getting in touch with fans in a way that helps you kind of figure out what they want. When I'm writing columns for ESPNW or when I'm hosting stuff on ESPN 1000, I think hearing what it is that fans are talking about and what they actually feel about teams or GMs or players really influences how you craft what it is you're going to talk about and also how you specifically address it. Even something like message boards, which are kind of a thing of the past now because people have taken to Twitter instead, it gives you an idea of what fans are really talking about as opposed to what media professionals are talking about, which can often be really different.